Hi, I'm Darren from Ignite, and this is one of our recent installations of the Chilli Penguin stock cube. This particular model has the convection panels on. The convection panels make the stove a little bit bigger, and it draws cold air in through the bottom and spits hot air at the top, so a bit like a radiator. So it's designed to move the heat a little bit more evenly around the room. It is available without the convection panels as well, and so this is the model. And this is the wood burning version of the Chilli Penguin, and that is distinguishable by the fact that there is no ash pan at the bottom and no grate. You're burning wood in the bottom of the fire. The reason that we have no ash pan is because wood draws air purely from above, whereas coal needs air from below. So a wood burner, you burn on the bottom of the fire, and it's important to try and generate a bed of ash. As you can see, this has not been used before. So today, when we get it going, we're going to just light a little fire, kindling fire, which is part of what we call the curing process. The curing process is to gently warm up the stove. So we are building up a little bit of heat and a little bit of temperature in the stove gradually, as opposed to lighting a big fire all in one go. We light a small fire and it just gently gets the heat into the stove. And as you light the hot fire at a later date, the paint on the stove will go through a slightly tacky procedure where it creates a barrier, and that is quite a smelly stove. So that's basically what we need to do. We need to have a small fire first, and then we have another fire that's a medium fire, and then a hot fire, and then that's going to get a little bit of heat into the fire, and it will create an odour into the room. And it's really important to make sure that you ventilate the room when you have that first hot fire. But today, we're just going to light a small fire in the bottom. So to explain the controls, it's very simple. On a wood burner, you have one control, that's it. And this control here opens different parts of the stove. And basically when it's pulled fully out, it's in what we call the boost setting, or people of a certain age will remember a choke on a car, and it works in a very similar principle to that. So when we've got it in the boost setting, we've got maximum air running into the fire, because it's really important to force heat into the flue and to get the fire to draw the smoke away. And that's called primary air. So pulled fully out is it's called the boost setting. And as the fire gets established and we get a little bit more heat in there and we've got a nice established hot fire, they recommend you push it in about 10 millimeters, so about halfway. What that does is that will then start to close different parts of this stove. So you've got air coming in past here, which cleans the glass. Very important. You've also got little holes at the back here, and that is what we've got in the boost setting. So the boost setting puts air directly into the bottom of the fire to get the fire really hot nice and quickly. And you'll also see we've got these holes at the back. This is really important. So this is the environmental perspectives of stoves nowadays, in that when the fire is nice and hot, it pulls air through the bottom of the fire, up through the back, and then it spits hot air through these holes here into the glass. And what that does is it reignites the smoke before it enters the flue. This is all part of the new eco design label, which is all about increasing the efficiency of the fire, which means you're burning less wood, and it reduces the amount of smoke entering into the flue and up into the atmosphere. So obviously we're very, very passionate about that as a little company. Right, so when we light the fire, we set the kindling up in the bottom of the stove here. And we've got just a little stack of kindling, and we've got these little fire lighters here. So these fire lighters are widely available on Amazon and obviously local shops. And these are made from a natural straw soaked in wax. So these are so clean, they're environmentally friendly, and they're cheap as chips. So we always use these instead of the white paraffin-based ones, because they get quite smoky. Just going to show you over here as well while we're at it. So in a normal way, this here is called the top-down method. And we feel that this is the best way to light a fire, and it's on most of my other videos. So the top-down method involves small logs at the bottom, smaller logs on top, and kindling on top, and then fire lighters right at the top of the fire. And what happens there is you light the fire lighters here, it generates heat and it burns down into the tower. So by the time you're burning these logs down here, the fire's hot, the flue's hot, and it's all ready to go. It's a really good method because, for a number of reasons, it's lower maintenance. So you don't have to keep opening the door and adding wood to it. So you can light the fire, walk away, half an hour, come back, and it's ready. But the other way of doing it, the other reason that we suggest it is because you're not having to open the door constantly to reload the fire. We do not want smoke back in the room. It's important to make sure that we avoid that. So with stoves nowadays, because they work so efficiently, you need to get the flue nice and hot to prevent any smoke entering the room when you do reload the stove. So by having the top-down method, it's a really quick and easy way of lighting your fire. However, on the first fire that we've got here, we can't light a big fire. We've got to light a small fire to build up that heat. So this is a kindling fire that we've got here. The old-fashioned way, or the standard way, if you like, of lighting a fire is we light some kindling and then we start to add wood to it. So that's an alternative way of lighting it. So there's two ways of lighting a stove. The top-down method, as I've showed you, and then the standard method, which is using kindling and then just adding pieces of wood. The crucial thing is not adding too much wood all in one go, and add small logs and build up the log size gradually. So as we've got over here, we would be starting off with something this sort of size and then building up to something of this sort of size in sort of 20 minutes, half an hour. So we see we've got a nice gradual build up of logs here. Okay, but today we're just going to light this. Okay, so I have a lighter and we have our control pulled fully out into the boost setting, as I explained. And I'm just going to let that go and get going a little bit. And then I'm going to explain just the rest of the stove here and what's going on with it. Okay, there we go. Now up and running. Put that there. And then we've got a little bit of kindling on top of it. Okay, so I'm going to close the door fully. Now, if at this stage we struggle to get the fire going, we can crack the door a little bit, but on this occasion I think we're going to be okay. We've got the control fully open. Just a little bit of smoke building up in there as the firelighter's taken to the kindling, but we will get it going shortly. And just to, there we go, look at that, it's going nicely now. So as you crack the door very slightly, a lot of manufacturers suggest cracking the door just for a few seconds, just to allow that extra bit of air to get in through the door here and get the fire going nice and quickly. As you'll see inside, the fire bricks inside here are all nice and clean at the moment. They will start to discolour a little bit, but when the fire's burning nice and hot, you'll see that the fire bricks will clean up as well. As I say, what you're always aiming for is some nice flames. If it's smouldering in the bottom of the fire, you'll tend to find that the glass might go dirty and the fire bricks will go dirty. So just for, as I've shown you here, when you close the door, you get a bit of smoke initially inside the fire. If you just crack the door a little bit, just for a couple of minutes, just so you can feel a little bit of heat coming through the glass. And then we should be able to close that door now. And it's going up nice. That's really nice. So there we go, it's burning away great. So the fire bricks inside the stove here, so they're made of something called vermiculite. They're a relatively delicate product. They're all designed to keep the heat inside the stove, to insulate the inside of the stove, which gets the fire hotter, which burns the smoke off. They are, as I say, quite delicate. The biggest issue with them is they do not like moisture. So we always recommend good quality dry fuel. Kiln dried wood is always better because it's a consistently dry wood. Yes, it's more expensive, but you get more heat from that log that you put on it, and it's consistent. Seasoned logs can be, predominantly dry, but there might be a few soggy logs in there. We do not like soggy logs. So kiln dried logs are what we always recommend to people. So the kindling's now burning away. The control's fully open. We've got the door closed. We've got a nice bit of heat building up inside the front of the stove there. And normal circumstances, we would be adding a small piece of wood to that now. As I say, because this is the first fire, we're not going to do that today. We're just going to light the kindling. And I say, normal operation will be, we'd be lighting this here, that'll be burning down, and then we'd be adding wood as we need to. Once the fire's established and you've got a nice bit of heat coming from it and the log's burning nicely, you'd start to think about turning this down by about 10 millimeters, about three quarters of the way out. I'm going to show you shortly what the control actually does, because this controls the air, as I said, into the stove. So as you close the air supply down, it forces the stove to burn at a lower temperature. And I'm going to show you that now. Now, normal circumstances we wouldn't do this, but just for the sake of the video, I'm going to show you what happens when you push the control fully in. So you can see now the fire's almost gone out, and that's how much control you've got on this stove. That is really impressive, because obviously cheaper stoves, they don't have that sort of control. They're not engineered as well, but the Chilli Penguin, because it's built in such a way that when you use the control here, it really does have a big effect. As you can see, it's almost instantaneous. So I'm going to just move on to how to clean the stove. So we always recommend a microfiber cloth. Never put water on the stove, never put anything damp, you don't need anything moist on it particularly. Wonder wipes, household wipes, decorators wipes are quite good, but don't put water on it. And if you do put anything like that, or if you get a mark or something, dry it. So never leave anything wet on the stove. It can affect the paint quite badly, and then you'll be ringing me to respray it. So the other thing as well is it's always quite handy to have a little can of 3-in-1 oil. So periodically the handle and the hinges here, they need a little bit of lubrication. Other than that, really, it's just a case of just cleaning it out as and when you need to. The cleaning out procedure is really simple on a wood burner. As you see at the back of the stove, there's a couple of holes at the back there, and we ideally don't want the ash to build up past the holes, but it is important to try and generate a bed of ash on the bottom of the fire. It makes it easier to light your fire. So don't be cleaning it out every time. Leave some ash in the bottom, and then just literally as the ash builds up to the point where it's starting to spill out or covering those holes at the back, then give it a bit of a clean out. Generally, people either use a Henry Hoover, Hoover with the tools, or a dustpan, and just empty it out. But say leave some ash in the bottom. And the other thing to try and avoid is putting the logs above those holes at the back, the 6 holes at the back there. You shouldn't need to, because you'd be baking hot in here, but it's really only one decent sized log at a time that you need to be adding to this stove. So try to avoid building up the fire above those holes. It becomes less efficient, and the whole burning off the smoke thing doesn't operate as well. So a couple of really good golden rules, and this is stuff that you don't tend to get written in instructions. When you open the door of the stove, you will always get smoke in the room if you don't open it correctly. So we always suggest open the stove, let the fire catch up, and then open your door, put your log on and close the door. Never open it like that. You will get smoke back in the room, and you are leaning over the fire and you are breathing that in, and it's making your walls go dirty. So when people complain about smoke in the room, it's because they're opening the door too fast. It's a really, really common thing. It's not the stove's fault, it's your fault. So open the door nice and gradually, really important. The other really important rule is before going to bed, a lot of people consider this to be a little bit like a TV, and they just close the fire down like that and then they go to bed. And then 2 o'clock in the morning, your smoke alarm's going off because the flue's cooled down. There's still fuel on the stove that wants to burn, but the flue's gone cold, so it pushes the smoke back in the room, and then your smoke alarm goes off, and then you come downstairs and think there's something wrong. And again, it's not the fire, it's the user. So an hour before going to bed, try and remember to pull the control fully out, burn the fire out fully, and then the glass will stay much cleaner, and you'll have no issues with the fire emitting smoke into the room. Really important. And I think that rounds off this video. Thank you for watching.